What's up, everybody? Today I'm going to paint a picture that has to do with my grandmother, Lavonne. So, as some of you may know, my grandmother is the one who got me into arm wrestling. She's the first one that I arm wrestled with as a child. Lavonne was my father's mother. She was a little old woman when I knew her. She was the way I knew her when I was small. She was just a caring old grandma who would fight with me at every opportunity. And when I mean fight with me, I mean arm wrestle with me, spar with me. I was a highly energetic kid, very highly energetic. I had nothing but energy. My uncle would come over and I would be trying to fight him and wrestle him and, everybody. I basically grew up very feral, very wild. I didn't have a lot of structure in my life when I was a little kid. Like most of my youth, and when I say youth, I mean like from the time I was probably like 2 or 3 years old to, the time I was in school and, for all my really kind of formative years was spent outside. We grew up on a great big farm. Nothing but space. Big island, Canada. I went fishing in the lakes. I was always in the forest with the dogs or whatever. Very free. Had a really quite a beautiful childhood. And really unrestricted. There was really not a lot of rules for me, growing up on the farm. Really just lots of time and freedom. Open air. I heard the term as I got older, growing up in a vacuum. Where you're just free to be you, just free to do as you do. Going through the forests, seeing what you could see, trying to catch different animals and start fires every once in a while. I started a lot of fires when I was a kid. And then when you're not being a completely wild animal, you come into your house, and of course, we'll see how this black goes. This will be the house that I lived in. Yeah, artistry at its finest. Okay, and my paint is all dried up. Might have to use a different color here for the house. We'll see if I can get some going. All right. Well, we will make the house. Dark blue. It'll just be a darker blue. I grew up in this house, and inside the house, there were rules and expectations, manners, and you couldn't just run around like you did on the outside, breaking everything. But when you're like a 5-year-old, 7-year-old, 6-year-old little kid, it's really all you want to do. When I was in the house, my grandma was actually, I would say, my first sensei, my first teacher, my first fight instructor, my first person who would actually take time and fight with me and spar with me. And, I guess I'll use a red to represent that, inside the house with my grandma, we would practice. We'd practice fighting in the form of arm wrestling. And she would let me work and work. It was very simple. It was very simple. It was very beautiful. It was a grandmother allowing her grandson to channel all of his energy. That's what it was. And there was all sorts of rumors that my grandmother was the champion of Alberta, arm wrestling. That's how the legends went around our house. And that's kind of how it stayed. It was really pure. And when I was 18, I went out west and I worked in the oil field. And I actually stayed with my grandmother. I actually stayed with her. And I got to see her. This is me here. This is me. And I saw her differently. I saw her as she was older. And my grandmother was very alcoholic, and she had other issues as well. But as I continued to age, I saw, I ended up at that time. I met Devon Larratt while I was out west with my grandmother and the Larratt side of my family. And I joined the military shortly after that, and I continued to arm wrestle. My whole life I've been arm wrestling, and fighting in different things to one degree or the other. And it was just recently that my oldest boy Milo actually told me, he's like, "Dad, did you realize that Grandma's name is Lavonne?" Right, and I hadn't put that together, actually, believe it or not. I hadn't. And I saw that as I built my life, so much of it was built off of these very simple early days with my grandmother and what she gave me and what she showed me. What she let me do. She let me harness my energy. She let me work with her. And I saw that, so much of my life had been impacted by my grandmother. So much of my life was built off of this small seed that she planted in me at such a young age. And probably the reason why I'm painting this picture now is because of my recent discussion with Milo. And I just went out to Winnipeg, and I saw one of my relatives, Shane Larratt, and we were talking all about the family, because when families don't often see each other, sides of a family, you don't always talk, and what my grandmother gave me when I was very little and so pure and so simple. But as I aged, I started to realize all of her pain, all of my grandmother's pain. My grandmother was married to my father's father, and his name was David. And I don't know exactly how their life was. I don't know. But what I do know is that whatever it was while they were together, I'm not sure, but in the will, there were clauses that stipulated that if she were to remarry, or something like that, that she would lose all the inheritance. She would lose the farm, she would lose all the money, she'd lose everything. So, as the story goes, shortly after that, and this is long before I'm born, this is decades before I'm born, she fell into a horribly self-destructive state. Horribly self-destructive. And it's, and as an adult, I can understand that. And as a person who's, lived now 49 years, I can understand the pain that she must have been living through when her husband, who ran into a burning house to save their daughter, who was not there, and then to find out what love meant, or what her belief on love combined with the traumatizing effect just must have completely damaged her, potentially to a degree that couldn't be healed. And it made me, when I had all this information, it made me think about her and look at her a bit differently and understand that she was a very damaged person, a very hurt person, a person who had much trauma, and it was not simple. But really none of that mattered. None of that mattered. You see, because that wasn't my relationship with her. That wasn't what I experienced with my grandmother. My only relationship with my grandmother was that she loved me, and that she fought with me, and that she taught me the joy of fighting. So, what's important is what she gave me, the gift that she gave me. Hello, little one. Hey. My grandmother gave me great gifts at an early age, and this is what I choose to hold on to. I could just go like this, maybe this color. Lots of red. And red to me is representative of the passion that she showed me when it came to fighting, and how much fun it was, Now she let me harness my energy. That's what the red stands for. You know, she let me fight her. She let me fight. And this is what I remember. I don't need to remember her pain. I know it's there. I know it's there, but that's not what she gave me. It's not what she gave me. My grandmother chose to arm wrestle with me. And really, to me, it's wild what a person can give another one when they're young. You know, when someone is a child, very young, you know, what do you give them? You don't need to give them any of your damage. You don't need to give them any of your sin or failure or loss. It doesn't need to be shared so much. And this is what Lavonne was to me. To me, Lavonne was this love of fighting, this love of connection, this love of holding on to each other and making each other stronger. That's what it was. That's what it was, very simply. This is the way I remember my grandmother. And, you know, I could probably leave this just the way it is now, and I would understand what it meant. But I'm going to add some more. Because everything can be washed away. All the things can be washed away. And you hold on to the good. And over time you wash away the negatives, and you can remember a person for the light that they gave you. Now, the most special thing that my grandmother did for me was she would tell me, Devon, go and get me some apples, and I will make you an apple pie, and then we will arm wrestle. And as a 5-year-old kid, there really is no... For me, it was my greatest gift. It was my greatest gift. We had in our front yard an apple tree. We had in our front yard a single apple tree. We had apple trees all around the farm, wild apple trees. But we had one apple tree, and the apples weren't even that good. It was probably half wild, and half the time all the apples had bugs in them, or it was a bad year. There weren't too many apples, but nevertheless, this apple tree was right in the front yard. And I've always, whenever I see an apple tree, I do think of my grandmother. So after Milo reminded me about Lavonne and seeing my cousin, I was inspired to do a little bit of painting today in between my training. And living the incredibly difficult life that I now live. For me, the image of the tree has symbolism. When I see a tree, I think about a relationship. And a relationship slowly grows and evolves and matures and gets bigger. And there's much symbolism in a tree with the leaves and potentially the apples of intergenerational relationship. And, you know, in our family, we have a custom that every time a child is born, a tree is planted. And through this apple tree, I always remember my grandmother's love and the simplicity of what she gave me. It was the sport of arm wrestling. So, thanks to everybody for tuning in for my little art project. Hello, hey, Bray. You never know what influence you have over a young person. So to all the grandmothers out there who play with their grandkids, on behalf of all of us, thank you. Thank you for what you do.